All right. Welcome, everyone. It's good to see you here. Um, so if you want to, can you bring up and share the agenda for the meeting?
Sure.
Okay, so our agenda today is a little bit abbreviated because neither the president nor the provost can be with us, um, which means we may also finish early, which on a beautiful day when it's 70 degrees out, most people won't object to. But that being said, is there any additions or changes to the agenda? All right, hearing none, the agenda is approved. Um, so we need to move to approve the January meeting minutes. So yeah, let's bring those up for folks. Although I'm sure you have a copy of them, so. All right, we already have a move to approve the minutes.
Seconded.
Okay, does anyone have any edits? Hearing none, the meeting minutes from January are approved. So now we can, if you don't mind, go back to the agenda, Teresa, and we will move right along. And I believe because there is no president and there is no provost, that puts me up first. So I, I wanted to I wanted to begin with just a brief update of a few items for you. First, I did talk to President Stokes about the resolution that we passed last month, and I provided her some context about its intent and emphasized the reason that it was passed and why it was important to the faculty. And I'll continue to follow up as needed with her about that. Right now, they haven't had any issues that would make them believe that this is going to be an issue for New Mexico. Second, we're forming a work group to review the dean surveys that we send out. And it goes out to all the faculty and all the staff. And I'm sure you have gotten them and filled them out about your deans before. But the goal is to assess the clarity of the surveys, their relevance, and to align them with what's needed in the evaluation to give adequate feedback to all of our deans, um, so that they're really hearing from the faculty about performance and about what we think they're doing well and what can be improved. And so we need to make revisions to that document. Um, as you may know, that survey is actually owned by the Faculty Senate. So it is ours to change, and it has been a while since it has been edited. So we want to be thoughtful and representative in this process. So I'm asking today for your recommendations regarding who should serve in on that work group, and that you please think about individuals uh, that have experience with faculty governance, that may know survey design or assessment, that maybe they have a good understanding of the administrative review process, as well as the representative of different areas of main campus and the health sciences and the branches. So if you think of names that you think might be good for this and you put them in the chat, Teresa will keep a record of them. Otherwise, if you would rather, you can email me and be sure and copy Teresa on those emails. And the ops committee will get together probably at one of our meetings coming up soon and try to identify who will be on that work group. Um, but we would like it to be representative of the whole faculty and across the campuses. We also hopefully want somebody that's been a good past dean or understands what deans do, um, to help us out with that process as maybe an ex officio. And then soon, the Faculty Senate Preference Survey will be coming out for all the committees. And as you know, several of our committees are currently operating with more than a few vacancies. So on the survey, once we start getting responses back in, if it's necessary, we may ask some of those people to start serving early, so that we can have adequate representation at some of the committees that are currently short of people. So if you're aware of colleagues who want to be on a committee, please encourage them to fill out the survey. Um, and that would be very helpful. And if you have anybody that you know of any vacancies that they would like to serve on a committee, like the library committee, let us know and we will be happy to find them a slot. So, and then finally, today when we have breakout sessions, and we should have plenty of time for them, I want to ask each of the groups to identify at least one initiative that's concrete and actionable. So something your group could begin working on this academic year, or if appropriate, develop it into a multi-year effort that carries forward into next year. In our January discussion breakout groups, you already identified substantive policy development, faculty well-being, and structural clarity across campuses that was needed. So today I'd like you to dive a little deeper into those themes and think about implementation. What would be the first step? Who would need to be engaged? And what would the deliverable be? And at our next meeting, which is in person, I'm going to ask the groups to report out on this. And it'll give us time then as a bigger group to have a discussion about what you identify. And because neither of the president or the provost are able to join us today, our meeting's probably going to stay on time and maybe even be somewhat shorter. So I encourage you to use the time productively in your groups and just be prepared for the report out in March. And I would tell you that when your groups do end today, when you've reached your end, I don't see a need to hang out just to hang out. So when your group ends and you've finished your deliverables and you have it written up and you know what you're going to say next month, then you're free to go because there will be nothing after that. So I'll hang out in the lobby of the little Zendo thing we have going here, and we'll wait in case anybody has any questions or wants to come back and discuss. Chris.
Roberta, forgive me. I just wanted to catch you during your report before we get to the consent agenda. Um, would you be able to say anything about the four options that the budget leadership team is considering in terms of possible change in benefits? I mean, I don't mean to put you on the spot. I can talk
No,
about it
no.
too, but
Oh,
and
it's
it,
okay. I was gonna ask Teresa if she has the email I sent them, if they could pull up what the
oh,
four
okay.
options are. Do you have that, Teresa?
Sure, if you can give me just a second, I'll find that.
Thank
Okay,
you.
so we'll have her pull those up and we'll go through. I did send out a survey to Faculty Senate and I got like 4 responses. So I didn't get a lot. So people can feel free to chime in here about what they think. I also, since I had the ability,
Sorry if I jumped the gun.
no, no, I would have not said anything about it. So um, I also sent out the same survey to the College of Nursing because it was such a hot topic in our faculty meeting that I thought I would get more replies. And actually, can we just hit the budget leadership document so we can see that piece? And then we'll probably have to page down. And there's a slide that, yeah, you
It's
have to,
slide 16. It starts at slide 16.
thank you for being well organized uh, and knowing this, because I just start paging through them.
There you go.
There it is. Okay. And before I say anything, Tracy, did you want to say something?
Yes, I did. I was probably one of the few people who did reply. And as part of my response, I also asked a question that I don't know if you saw and you maybe haven't had a chance to answer yet. But allegedly, the reason that Senator Munoz originally wasn't going to offer the 1% pay raise to state employees was because they thought it would be a better plan to put money into helping defray these insurance costs. So that was his rationale, that he felt that it was a better investment to help offset these costs rather than give us raises, which I still emailed them about and said, give us a pay raise anyway. But to my question here is, if that's the case, if that's true, and I don't know if that passed the legislative session, what would that investment from the state do to these numbers?
Okay.
Because would that offset that 13% to 10%, or would it offset that 13% to 5%? So having that information, I think, would be really helpful for us to understand which is the best option here.
So, A, we don't have that information, but B, at least according to the newspaper and my discussion with President Stokes earlier, well, last week, the 1% got put back in for pay raises. So that actually, at least as it stands, is back in. Now, the governor could still, I guess, take it out. But right now it's in there. And so, which I suspect means that 1% now isn't available for this. So, so the basically the 4 options are a baseline plan, and it's the current plan with no changes. And if we keep the current plan with no changes, then we have a 20.1% cost increase in your health insurance. If they do the medical, if they basically increase the deductible, increase the out-of-pocket maximums, and increase the prescription co-insurance, basically they're changing your out-of-pocket cost, and you're paying more out-of-pocket cost, then it's 17.1% increase. If they remove the GLP-1 anti-obesity medicines with no change to coverage for those people who are diabetic, then it's a 13.1%. And if they do the medical RX changes, so a combination of both B and C, so they're increasing your deductibles and they're getting rid of GLP-1s for anybody that is not diabetic, then it's a 10.1% increase. There was a huge discussion in the budget leadership team about this. And the people that did that have presented to various colleges and to other groups as well. And basically, the issue is what's driving the majority of the increase in cost is the number of people that are now on the GLP-1s. And the fact that when the university pays for them, they pay the full fee, which is like $1,500. For people that their insurance doesn't cover it, they can get them on the open market through the pharmaceutical companies for $350. Um, but the increase in cost is evidently in those, and the number of people taking them is what is driving up the cost of the insurance plans. The discussion, and Chris can chime in at any time, did not make me as a nurse or a human being happy. First of all, and for all the healthcare people on here, you will know this. We quit using the word non-compliant when talking about people. When I was in school, when God was first born. I mean, seriously, people, we haven't used that in forever. So I was really shocked to hear people in leadership positions using that term. So that was the first thing that kind of bugged me. The second thing that bugged me about it was the recognition that there are lots of medications that people don't use as prescribed. And my big example is the one that's been an example forever and ever, which is people that use the eye drops for glaucoma. They burn. People don't use them. I mean, and they know if they don't use them, they will go blind, and they don't use them. And yet we don't say we should not prescribe them or give them to people because they won't use them. And then they said, well, if people quit using these anti-obesity drugs, they'll regain all the weight and all the markers for hypertension and diabetes and everything will go back. At which point I couldn't take it anymore and pointed out that if I quit taking my hypertensive meds, my hypertension, my blood pressure will come back and go up, although it was probably going up in that meeting with them. And so my point was, it was like they were cherry picking the worst. I was kind of shocked. And I'm not usually easily shocked, but I was shocked by the discussion of them. That being said, I realize they're expensive, and that they are a lifetime medication. When you start taking them, you will probably take them now for a lifetime. But that's the same with our diabetes medications and our hypertensive medications and for most people, cholesterol and any other slew of medications you take, because as we get older, which I am learning all too well, our bodies start turning into little traders, and they sell us out. So we start needing all these things to help us. So the discussion was alarming. That being said, I will tell you that that the responses I got to the email pretty much shows all of the options with questions. For the College of Nursing, it was kind of switched, but it was kind of split between A and C, with more people wanting C than A. But those were the only two options people really chose. At any rate, that being said, you can take a look at the whole BLT book that walks you through it, and somebody put a link in here. And that being said, I'm going to go open it up and let other people say things. Crystal has things. People have things in the comments. But go ahead, Crystal.
Hi, Roberta. Thank you. So I, of course, sent it out to the Faculty Senate Budget Committee and had several people respond as well. And I would say it mirrors that. A couple of good points that came up. Actually, Chris just put one in the comments was, if we start down this road, when do they decide, well, this disease state shouldn't be covered, this disease state shouldn't be covered? And there was another question about the demographics, because they presented at BLT that there's 480 people on it for obesity, but there's no demographic data or how that impacts. And their concern was, are we impacting a specific population more than other populations based on some of their genetic pieces, which you kind of talked about in like our bodies getting older. So, and they were talking about ethnicity, but aging as well. And they were also mixed on which ones to choose.
Yeah, and it was just, it's a really hard thing because it is a significant amount of money. And as a disclaimer, I have TRICARE for life. I don't get my insurance through UNM. I do get my health care through UNM. And I will say that it is one of the reasons that I thought it was really important to get feedback from everybody, because it's not usually something that I pay attention to. Liz said that the GLP-1 cost to the university is just one of the elements of the rising healthcare cost. And that is true. And Chris has pointed out that when you stop prescribing, when you stop covering a medication, it can be a slippery slope. So again, this is one of those cases where my entire career, well, when I was actually seeing patients, my entire career, we put obesity on the diagnosis list. We considered it a diagnosis and a condition that had to be addressed. And the problem is, at least my entire career, I have never seen anything we've done that successfully treated it. And now there's something that successfully treats it. And the answer is, oh, but let's not pay for it. And for some people, if I want to buy it, I can afford $350 a month. But I'm not sure our staff assistants could. And I'm not sure the people that do, I mean, I don't know who I am sure if the football coach wanted to, he could afford it. But I don't know how many of the lesser paid, the lower end of the income people could do it. I don't know if assistant professors could afford it. I just don't know. So I'm not sure who we're impacting, which is why I reached out and asked for input. Natalie said something about going employee impact. So you guys should just start speaking, so that instead of you should hop in. We have a little time today. If you
Okay. So if we went back to the slides, a couple slides up, there are employee impact scenarios, and they kind of calculate what the net impact is in dollars on employees, and it included something that was labeled as 1% MSU, and I couldn't figure out what that was. But is it the 1% anticipated pay raise?
Yes, it's MSU stands for Mass Salary Update. So it's the projected 1%. I just want to throw in here for everybody too. I know not everybody is covered by the union in this meeting in the Faculty Senate, but no matter what the Senate passes, no matter what the governor decides, the union, the faculty union, will still be negotiating with UNM when it comes to compensation, because it's a change in working conditions. So I just want to put that out there, that even if the 1% is approved, it's not the end of negotiations and what that mass salary update might look like.
Me to myself. Nahir says, I can't afford it. My faculty can't afford it. The increase in insurance, or I'm not sure which you mean. So,
Are
but
you asking me to
yes,
answer?
yes, please.
Well, I couldn't afford either one. I mean, basically I would have to pay $200 extra. I have kids. And, I moved here about 6 years ago when everything started to go up, housing started to go up. So my salary goes into paying a mortgage, it goes into my kids. Like it's becoming untenable to be faculty at this institution if it continues to go the way it is. The university already takes out $30,000 from my paycheck a month, like a year. So this is really scary. And I couldn't afford those drugs if I needed them.
Well, and it was pointed out that even if they gave the 1% pay raise, that the 1% pay raise doesn't cover all the fees and expenses that are going up, because in the process of that, they're also increasing parking fees. And you want to say, come on, while everything else is going up, you could bypass that. But that being said,
Roberta,
yes.
could you explain one of your last comments / questions / suggestion to the budget leadership team was about the option of UNM no longer offering its own insurance plan? Could you talk about that?
I did ask them if the insurance cost was going up so substantially, and if we're a small group, because we are a small group, as you know, when you negotiate cost, small groups don't negotiate as well as large groups. Is it time that they considered, should they go with more traditional health insurance plans so that it's not all that it's not all self-paid through the UNM system. Now, what I did hear back about that, and I can't remember who in leadership told me, was that the problem is that the insurances outside of UNM are going up even more than what's happening at UNM. So that ours actually is more moderated. And I didn't hear this till late last week. And I don't know if it was President Stokes or the provost or who told me that. But they evidently checked into it. And the problem is those rates are going up even more. So it is a nationwide problem. It's not just us. And it doesn't impact everybody equally. So as you know, how much you pay in your insurance is based on salary. And by statute, UNM can only adjust it so much because some levels are set by the state, and they can't, like, say people below X income pay nothing. They don't have the ability to do that. So it's something that people that it's a problem, and it's we're going to they'll eventually ask for a show of hands in the budget leadership team meeting. And I'm hoping Chris might be able to sit in for me at the next one. And if not, we may have to find somebody else to sit in, because if they vote, somebody needs to be voting for the faculty senate president, and they move the one next week to where it overlaps with the presidential search committee. So
I'll be there, Roberta.
okay, cool. Melissa.
I just wanted to know if in the discussions, like, what about creating a health plan for all the employees at state institutions? Has that ever been thrown on the table? So to get the group bigger, you know, and to spread the risk through a larger group of faculty?
I do not know. I know the state has its own health insurance plan, and UNM is separate from that. But theirs evidently went up just as much. So it's not just UNM. And somebody posted that NMSU's plan has historically been much less. So this is why I asked for input about what your preferences are. Teresa, do you want to pull those preferences back up and have people take one more look at them? So they basically went from 20% increase to a 10% increase. So the lowest increase would be 10%. And you probably know what you pay in insurance. And so you have to decide what will work for you. Ultimately, leadership will have, the people in the leadership are going to have to make a decision. Go ahead, Nahir.
I just wanted to say that I feel like these choices are making us complicit in this decision. Like, I reject all four of this. I do not want my colleagues to have to pay more for their health insurance. I do not think that we should kick people out of getting their medication for obesity. And I don't think that they should put our costs higher at 20%. I also don't think a 1% increase is enough. Like, these are not real options. None of these are real options. And I don't want to choose between these options, because then I'm being complicit in helping the university make a decision. I think the answer should be, this is unacceptable. And what is our Senate, our state, and our university going to do to fix this? Like, that's what I want ultimately. And I know everybody says I'm too not practical, but I don't think that's right. I think I'm very practical.
Well, okay. I will
Nair, you're not to anything.
No, I mean, I understand where you're coming from, but the options are the four on the table or abstain, and abstain means you don't count at all. And so, I mean, which is why I said, I would vote for what people think they want. Because, I mean, I look at it, and 20%, I don't care how much money you're making, a 20% increase in your health insurance is a chunk of change per year. And I don't think that would be good for anyone. But that being said, the trade-off is, and somebody did ask them at the meeting, can you tell us what the cost would be? Because if you're increasing the deductible and you're increasing, as well as you're increasing the out-of-pocket, and you're increasing the co-pays on your medications, well, does that end up being more money than the 20%? And that was a big, well, it depends on the person and what they use. So if you're young and healthy, then it won't have any real impact for you. But if you're on medications or you have a medical condition, then actually B could cost you more money than A. So, Chris.
I don't know that this will necessarily make it feel any better, but one or two slides before this one, there is a list of, keep going. There's a list of stakeholders here, I think it is. Sorry, go back one. Oh, no. Sorry. This is a list of those. I just wanted to let people know, and I don't know that this necessarily feels any better that those four options didn't occur in a vacuum, but I cannot say whether those four options were preordained and then that's what was presented to these groups. But I just wanted to point this slide out and then the next one, the next slide, which, sorry, the other way. This is a summary of the themes that came up within those feedback groups. Oh, also, and just finally, Dr. Sood put a link in the chat that maybe could be interesting for people as why healthcare prices are going up.
Oh, that was one of the other things that kind of bothered me. You're sharing your email, by the way. Okay. That was one of the other things, the coaching option saying, oh, if people want AOMs, then they have to agree to coaching. I'm like, what kind of nanny state are you trying to create? These are adults, they're not children. You know, you don't need to tell them. Um, I mean, I was just like, these are all the things that are gatekeeping to try to get people to not use something. Go ahead, Natalie.
So in answer to Chris's question of whether those four options were preordained when they were presented to all those different groups, they'd already run all those calculations and they were presenting the same numbers to those groups as you're seeing here, basically. So again, it was just choose between these four or kind of give us feedback about these four. And I just wanted to say that if they can calculate how much will be saved by raising the deductibles and the out-of-pocket costs, then they can answer the question of how much more will this cost faculty, because it's the exact same amount spread out over everyone. So the idea that they couldn't really answer that, they could have answered it on at least an average basis, and I feel it was disingenuous to not answer that question. Anyway, that's what I got.
Liz?
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate the discussion. Following on Chris's comment about what was presented, whether it was preordained or not, I remember that presentation from Kevin Stevenson to the Senate. And I think the response was very much what was summarized here, right? Concern with premiums outpacing salary, desire for continued progress. But the senators didn't say very much either. So I feel that we've fallen behind if what we want to do is mount a non-compliance with the request of four options, because we had them a few months ago. And I know people have been working on it. Don't get me wrong. But I think it's a hard moment. The longer it's in front of people, the more preordained these options seem. And I wish that we had a little more of this kick in our November meeting, because I think that would have been a time to challenge Stevenson directly, and see if there was any door we could push on to encourage more creative strategies for reducing cost. This is not an issue I know a lot about, but I do know that working against this sort of inexorable four option presentation, we may need to be a little bit more nimble in responding forcefully when these things first come to our attention. And I fault myself for that as well.
All right. With that, I think we can end this discussion because while Liz is on, we have other items on the agenda, but I want to get to Liz, give Liz plenty of time, and then get to our breakout. So the next item was, I think we had something we had to vote on, right?
Consent agenda, I think it was.
Yes, next up is the consent agenda. I do have a poll for that.
Okay. And can we tell them what was on the consent agenda so they know?
On the consent agenda was the addition of a committee appointment. I'm looking for it here. The addition of Azizi Ray to the HSE Council Policy Committee. And that was it.
All right. Do you want to put up the...
I think we need a motion.
Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda in a second?
I move to approve it.
Okay, we got two. So Osborne and Lewis. And any objections? There is your vote. And then after this, I think we have an item on a posthumous degree.
You are correct.
Okay, so the motion passes. So can we go to, is the next thing the posthumous degree?
It is, and I believe Lisa Linguist is still with us. Are you still there, Lisa? She was having a fire drill in her building.
Yes, hi, I'm still here.
Wonderful,
Hi.
thank you.
Sure. So let me just get myself together here. We're having a fire drill in our building. So I'm here to present the posthumous degree for Isaías Salvidres. I'm sure in your agenda the beautiful letter that was written on his behalf, but I just want to highlight a couple of things. So this was a young man who was in our combined BA/MD degree program. He was scheduled to graduate in this spring of 26. He was 22 years old when he was unfortunately diagnosed with a tumor and died shortly after. So obviously, to think about somebody so young who had the potential to give so much back is obviously very devastating. I wanted to highlight that his time with us was far too short. There's a spider. Whoa, hold on. Whew, sorry. That would be the difficulty of being outside. I apologize. Though his time with us was far too short, his kindness, humor, and generosity of spirit live on. And all who had the privilege of knowing him, I understand that he was a New Mexican from Santa Teresa, so a local to New Mexico, which of course we're always proud to see the accomplishments of those students in particular. He would have been graduating cum laude with a Bachelor of Arts in Health, Medicine, and Human Values with a concentration in Health, Humanities, and Society, and a minor in Chemistry. So with that, I just would like to put that in front of you today, and thank you so much for your consideration.
Thank you so much. Can we get a motion to approve this posthumous degree?
I move to approve.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. You have a vote up. And that was an all in favor. Thank you all very much. We will forward this on. All right. Now,
Thank you.
you're welcome. I think next up is Liz, who's going to talk to us about faculty governance. Liz, you have plenty of time. When you're finished, then we'll just move on to our breakout group. So take the time you need. You're on mute.
Thank you. Well, it's perhaps not a very auspicious day to talk to folks about shared governance, since clearly we're looking at a form of breakdown in shared governance. But I do think it's instructive, right? What do we think could have, should have happened, can happen to insert some kind of faculty leverage in what is clearly an untenable outcome? So in that respect, I agree. And I hope you'll bear with me as I present to you some an overview of faculty and shared governance at UNM, and just give me a moment to set up my slides, if you would. And we have come up with a couple of interactive things for us to do as well. So if you'll just bear with me, I will get going with Teresa's help here. All right. Are you seeing my slide? All right, thank you. Now I just have to be able to see mine. Okay. Thanks, Roberta. Thank you, Ops, for giving me time to present. I'll be brief, and the slides and recording will be made available after the Senate meeting. Please put any questions you have in the chat as we move along, and we can discuss these at the end, or I'll answer offline depending on how the timing goes. My goal is to keep this to under 20 minutes. So if you want to put cameras off and rest your faces, that's of course an acceptable time to do this. I'm a professor of history, current faculty senator, and this presentation emerges out of a long background of participation in faculty governance, mostly back in the 2009 vote of no confidence, the 2016 sudden restructuring of health sciences, both of which were low points in shared governance. It became pretty clear that regents, administrators, faculty needed more information about faculty rights and responsibilities, the ones that we do have, and the processes in place to support them. So when I became chair of the Committee on Governance, in order to promote faculty understanding and participation in governance, I built on some existing presentations to ensure that people would get this information, and in hopes also of getting more diverse representation in our faculty leadership. Now, I'd say that this year, last year, nowadays, faculty leadership in institutions of higher education is even more important, as our conversation today has demonstrated. If we're going to uphold our mission to serve students, the community, and advance our research, we really we've got to be on it with the limited time and energy that we have. So I'm going to try to be really efficient with this overview so you have more time for that work. So the presentation here has two parts. I'm going to emphasize the first part today and review how governance and policy work at UNM. I'm trying to focus on the faculty's role in how the university functions. Authority at UNM is exercised by administration and faculty according to different structures, and that's why I'm going to do a little bit on admin governance and faculty governance, as well as both of those areas of policy. My goal is overall to increase our institutional fluency, right? When we know more about how authority is organized at UNM, how it's supposed to work, and how change happens, we can be more effective. And I know many on this call are already deeply engaged in those processes. You know what I'm talking about. Please note the disclaimers, right? The sources, I build on some experience. The credits really, I'm being transparent here. I made AI help me with some exercises I wanted to do. But really, this comes out of a longer pattern of information gathering and sharing by faculty governance leaders. The key elements have approvals from COG, from AF&T, and from Senate Ops in previous iterations. And of course, always the wisdom and the support of our university secretary. So thank you, Nancy, as always. But I do recommend if you have a complaint or a concern, your best bet is not to rely on some random slides, but bring your concern directly to the committee that has jurisdiction over your issue. And if you don't know which one does, you talk to Nancy. Here, let's look briefly at the organization of administrative authority. It took a while to put this chart together. It has evolved since it was first created in PowerPoint in the 90s, but it's still not very pretty. It tells you who reports to whom in the administration, right? But not how decisions in the university are made. For that, we have to look at faculty governance and at shared governance. And before we do that, Teresa, can we work on the word cloud activity? I'm going to move to that slide. And what we're basically asking you to do here is take a minute. If you have any best experiences in faculty governance, whether as a senator or in your department, in your college, please put a couple of adjectives into the chat that describe what faculty governance is when it's at its best. And I'm going to be quiet so that you can do that just for a minute. And I'm not looking at the chat, so Teresa's in charge.
I got it.
Okay. All right. You can continue to add those, but I'm going to go ahead and advance a little bit, and we'll come back to what word cloud Teresa is able to build out of that. Please do add your adjectives. I could have asked you your worst faculty governance experience, but I didn't want to build off of that. I wanted to build off of the best ones. Okay, here's a chart that you can find on the faculty governance webpage of UNM that we built about 10 years ago, starting in the Committee on Governance, and then we got input and approval from AF&T and from the Operations Committee of the Senate. It diagrams these three different governance bodies that represent the faculty and shows, it's really trying to show how that representation functions differently according to the body we're looking at. So let's just look at the Senate first, because it is pretty straightforward. And you're all elected, so you know how this works, right? That you are elected by faculty in academic units, which could be a department or could be a college. And different academic units have some flexibility as to how they run those nominations and elections, right? In addition, 5 senators are elected at large by the entire voting faculty. Do people know what voting faculty refers to? I don't know, can't see people. You can unmute if you know what voting faculty means. Okay, it is a series of titles of continuing faculty. Oh, Natalie, maybe you know.
Well, I was just going to say anyone who's not in a sort of temporary visiting position, and this even includes research faculty are not voting faculty because they are technically temporary, even though some of us were in our positions for many, many, many years.
Right. I believe that's correct, and Nancy will tell us if it's not.
Natalie, you get an A+.
There you go. And what I'm going to ask to be added to the chat in the course of our conversation is there is actually an FAQ about what is voting faculty. So that we developed. So I want to make sure that Teresa adds that to the chat when she's done with her other work. So now let's just briefly look at the Senate. Inside the Senate is a mess of committees, right? That we made an effort to organize into a council structure some 15 years ago that would allow sort of the nesting of committees within these councils. The Operations Committee composition is in that dotted box over on the left, as you know, elected by members of the Senate. And I also want to point out at the top line that there are two committees that have historically reported directly to the Operations Committee, the Policy Committee and the Faculty Ethics and Advisory Committee. As I said, there are historical reasons for that are kind of interesting, but I'm going to keep going. And please note that our newest committee, the Social Justice Committee, remains an ad hoc committee and has not yet been approved for permanent status. So I'm wondering here at this juncture, Teresa, can we put up a word cloud? All right. Do I need to do anything?
Yes, give me just a second. I'm going to pull that up here. Oh, lovely. Okay.
And Liz, we realize your slide is a little older because we don't have the BCCC in there. So,
oh no, we've got to update that.
Yes.
Can you see that?
Um,
Can everyone see that word cloud?
Okay, we've got some very good positivity going on here. Yeah. Thank you. Everybody take a moment to take a look at that. Nicely done with the compound wordage of engaged stewardship. Right? So these are some elements that people have experienced, I hope. And one of the reasons I wanted to do this was just in the midst of what are often very difficult and frustrating conversations about how shared governance works, to remember that faculty governance itself is a site where we can have these experiences. Because I think if you're going to get anyone to join any of the Senate committees, you're going to have to bring them communicate some of this about what being in community with your faculty colleagues can produce, right, when it's really working. So that's why I wanted to pause and do that, that word cloud. I'll take the screen back now and keep going. And remember to help me out by putting some questions in the chat. Are you seeing my correct screen of the Faculty Senate? Thank you. All right, I'm going to keep going. By the way, Faculty Senate in many other institutions includes staff and administrators within their Senate. And secondly, at other institutions, the Senate is the sole governing body of the faculty. Here at UNM, we're pretty special, and people are always surprised when I tell them we have two more governing bodies independent of the Senate. So let's take a look at those. Svetlana, is this a question that you need to ask now?
Just comment about how your screen is showing. It's showing the current slide, the other slide, and notes. So something has changed.
Thank you. That's what I needed to hear. Let's see. Here we go. That should be better. Okay. Thank you so much, Svetlana. All right. I gotta keep going here. The Academic Freedom and Tenure Committee is actually one of the oldest of the three bodies, right? And we're going to look at them next. 13 tenured faculty members, each in 2-year terms. And It was created in 1949 in the faculty constitution and has broad jurisdiction to investigate complaints in 3 areas. We call these the big 3. And it is the job of the committee on receiving inquiries and complaints to determine whether those incidents or concerns fall within their jurisdiction, right? So they're very careful about this, that at least one of these criteria, violation of academic freedom, improper consideration, or procedural violations pertain in the case that's being brought to the committee. It's also, I think, meaningful to consider that in addressing faculty complaints, or even in hearing a request from the president to dismiss a tenured faculty member, which happens not very frequently, but does happen, the AF&T functions much as a jury, right? Committee members remain neutral, hearing evidence and recommending resolutions, which are then subject to appeal and are sent up to the regents for review. It's also really important that AF&T has the highest level of confidentiality at the university, which can be pierced only by IPRA or by legal mandate. In other words, if a chair or a dean or even a provost calls Nancy Middlebrook and says, "What is AF&T doing?" she can't tell them. And that's by agreement of the regents with the president of the Senate and many years ago. So that still holds. If we think about the third of the main bodies of faculty governance, we turn to the Committee on Governance itself, which came into existence in 1984, a few years after the Faculty Senate was created as a body that would represent the full faculty. In other words, the full faculty by the early 80s had gotten too large, too unwieldy to do all the business of the faculty. The Senate was created, and COG was created out of the executive committee of the full faculty, right, with the highest level of responsibility for faculty governance. I could tell you more about each of these responsibilities in the list if you're interested, but in general, a COG minds the store for us, including the functions of the Senate. So if something goes terribly wrong in the Senate, it's the Committee on Governance that receives that concern, that reviews it, and tries to resolve it on behalf of the faculty. So we can build all the faculty committees we like, right? As we know, how do they really impact how decisions are made? And that's where shared governance comes in. So let's take a look at what the AAUP has to say about shared governance. Here I'm violating what you should never put on a slide, too many words. But although shared governance had long been understood and practiced alongside of advocates for academic freedom since the 1940s, only in 94 did the AAUP issue its first guidance about shared governance, and argued that shared governance is central to decision making in higher education and functions to grant authority to different institutional actors, right? Usually in alignment with what their greater expertise and or their responsibility. That's where the authority is supposed to lie. So let's quickly see what you think of shared governance, because I have a feeling you'll all pass the test with ace the test. Teresa, are you able to put up the poll? There we go. These are all legit parts of shared governance. What do you think is the most important?
Still getting a few votes in. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and end it. Everybody's
Okay.
selected. Oh, still got a couple more.
People are being thoughtful, Teresa.
Yes,
You need to
yes,
let the
sorry.
brains work.
Trying not to rush.
This is a hard poll.
It is.
I know, there's a lot of words too. Roberta, I can tell I'm going to need an additional few minutes. Is that going to be all right?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Bear with me, people.
Where's the all of the above box? Liz?
I forgot that one.
That wouldn't tell us what we want to know.
Okay, it looks like we're done, so I'm gonna go ahead and end the poll. And I'll share those results.
All right. Very interesting. All right, you can leave that up just for the moment, Teresa. What I would say is, right, it's as you did this, I think it probably pretty clear how interdependent some of these qualities actually are, right? How do you have mutual trust without open two-way communication? Likewise, trust relies on transparency, particularly in budgeting and financial planning, as we were just discussing. So rather than spend a lot of time defining shared governance, I think what I point to is, on the one hand, these are what we hope will be our experience of shared governance here at UNM. It isn't always the case. But the fact that we know what it should look like, I think, is quite important. So I'm going to get right now down into the how to just talk about the structures that are in place that can assist us when we need to leverage the expectation of shared governance. So you can take that down, Teresa. Thank you so much. Here is a chart from the early days of PowerPoint, everybody. And shows you, again, mapping the governance bodies that participate in UNM's shared governance structures. It says nothing about how they do that, right, in the chart itself. And if we want, we could come up with examples of how shared governance occurs at UNM. We essentially do the work of shared governance in our curriculum committee, in the Senate's honorary degree subcommittees, both of which interact frequently with administration and with regents, respectively. And I'm about to talk a little bit about policy, both in the faculty handbook and administrative policy, which involve multiple steps that ensure proper consultation between faculty, administration, and the regents. I would also add that shared governance, when it works, ensures or aspires to communication and input about proposed changes, but it's not shared decision making. And I think that's where we run into some of the friction of shared governance, that the participation and voicing our concerns as a faculty, for example, is not the same as having veto power over the decisions. And I think that's something that we could probably spend time talking about, right? Note too on this chart that the bodies off in the right-hand box, right? These are entities that have a smaller role or a less consistent role in shared governance than that of the regents, the faculty, and the administration. So I think I would suggest to us that the role of these bodies could be further clarified and strengthened with help from the Faculty Senate if we chose to do that. So here I turn to the policy landscape for a few minutes and then I'll liberate you, okay? But this is where the animations get fun. The policy landscape at the highest level consists of these 3 policy manuals. Many of you are very familiar with them, each of which has a separate approval structure Namely, the regents approve their own policies, the Senate approves faculty handbook policies, and the administrative policies go to the desk of the president for final approval. The one exception to this in terms of the faculty handbook is that sets of policies are defined historically as requiring the further approval of the voting faculty and of the regents, right? They can't just be approved in the Senate. That's going to be very important as we bring forward changes we've been working on to Section B of the handbook, the section on academic freedom, which will be coming forward from the task force and academic freedom and tenure committee in the years ahead. The faculty constitution and faculty discipline policies likewise require higher levels of approval, including the regents. So how does the faculty end up with any jurisdiction at all? Because it's certainly not the most convenient way to run an organization. And it's written in the faculty's role in the university's academic mission from 1996, the year it was approved by the regents. And it lists these 7 areas in which the faculty have right of review and action. And if you read these, several of these categories pretty much look like a typical faculty senate agenda, right? The things that we review and we vote on. But the next question might be, once the faculty senate has done its work, built the faculty handbook policies, revised them, approved changes to the curriculum, how did these policy manuals interact? Well, realizing there was a problem in 2014, the Committee on Governance led an effort to add a new article to the faculty constitution, right? It was a huge lift at the time that then had to be approved by the regents, which simply states that the faculty handbook has primacy if there is conflict between the handbook and a university administrative policy. And I hear you cry, but how would you know which policy applies if you're a random faculty member? We wrote another policy for that. A53.1 is essentially a table that allows you to look across particular policy areas and see, is there a faculty handbook policy on on sabbaticals? Is there a policy on a variety of other topics? If so, it is applicable and administrative policy is not. This, of course, the picture is more complex with the union's agreement, right? Insofar as the bargaining unit has precedent even over faculty handbook policy. So there's it's a complex system, but we try to keep it clear, right? Now, you might say, okay, there are these manuals, but my department or my college is constantly making up policy as well. That's what I would call the difference between big P and little p policy, right? Insofar as unit level policies and guides are supposed to and should align with the relevant policies in the 3 main handbooks. So that's the main gist of the policy landscape that I think underpins the processes of shared governance and allows us in very specific cases to call out the lack of shared governance or a lack of compliance with policy when we know what this landscape looks like. I refer you for additional resources to the policy manuals for the regents and the administrative policy manual. And then within faculty governance, as I said, there's plenty of information available online. We have our esteemed faculty governance leaders, and at the center of it all, University Secretary Nancy Middlebrook, who's also happy, I'm going to speak for her, not really, but we'll answer your questions and direct you to the committees that can help you get them answered. So I know I went way over time and I am available for questions, but I also am happy to handle those questions offline if you want to move the group forward, Roberta.
All right. Well, I would say, first of all, are there any quick questions before we move on to breakout groups? Go ahead, Natalie.
So I guess my question would be if your local unit or your, even your regional unit, let's say HSC makes a policy that's in conflict with the faculty handbook, then and you say, oh, no, this is in conflict with the faculty handbook. And they say, no, it isn't. Because I've had this conversation where I say the sky is blue and I'm told the sky is green, many times at UNM. What should one do in that case?
Call Nancy? No, I'm kidding. I mean, I think it depends on the policy. There are going to be sort of immediate problems if a department or college level small p policy or implementation conflicts with Section B of the handbook, right, on tenure and promotion and academic freedom. And those are inquiries that I would direct to the chair of the AF&T. Just straight up, in which case it's helpful that that's a confidential conversation. It's more difficult, of course, to figure out when there are conflicting policies with other parts of the handbook. And that's where I would lean in and consult with Nancy or with other leaders in the Senate who are in a better position to help figure out which policy, which committee could you bring the concern to. I'll give you one example. There was a college that at one point it sought to have its faculty complete training necessary for certification in their field during spring break. I don't know if anybody remembers that. And the policy language was vague, and the relevant policy language on faculty workdays was vague enough that they thought that the leadership of the college thought this was okay. A group of faculty brought it to the Faculty Senate Policy Committee, who reviewed the language, made a decision on its intent, and instructed the dean not to have people lose their spring break. So there's a lot about faculty governance that I think is necessarily consultative, because we're always dealing with implementation, policies, and application that are not what we imagined when the policy was written. And we're constantly, as you know, because you're voting on it all the time, trying to improve the clarity of those policies. But Natalie, I don't know if that is instructive in answering your question, but I think when the answer is no in the leadership within your unit, you're within your rights to consult about the policy itself with the committee in charge of that particular policy.
Thanks. That is definitely helpful.
Tracy, do you want to go?
Svetlana had her hand up first.
Okay, sorry, I didn't see it. Go ahead.
I'm not in too much rush, but I just wanted to say thank you very much for putting so much effort in creating the structure, and I would like to meditate on the structure more. Is there a way to have slides after this presentation? Because
Great. Yeah, it's a lot of information, Svetlana, and as I said, I relied on a lot of other people's work as well to bring this forward, so thank you. Yeah. Tracy?
Okay, so I'm not sure if this is a question for you, or perhaps Chris can speak up, but where does the union grievance committee fit in along with this? Like, is that a parallel track, or instead of this, go there? Or, how do those bodies work?
That's
And
an excellent
with
question.
or
and
against each other.
I'm happy to let Chris weigh in, but as a former grievance committee member, and also this is a live issue that a group of faculty are looking at. How do we triage different types of grievances so that people arrive at the right space to grieve, right? The grievance committee is limited in most cases to issues that fall within the CBA. So that structure is in place to grieve violations of the CBA. And there is room for interpretation there as well, it seems to me. There are things the grievance committee can consult on behalf of faculty, but not be in a position to grieve. So the union's not a bad first stop in trying to figure out where to bring a particular concern. I know for sure that that grievance committee does redirect faculty to appropriate faculty governance bodies and has a lot of knowledge of AF&T, for example, with which in my view, the work of the grievance committee is complementary to that of AF&T. We just don't have all faculty covered by both processes. It's one of the issues there. Chris, you want to add something there?
Yeah, and also I don't know if Satya or Christian might want to say something too. I don't know if you already said, maybe you already said, Liz, that where the CBA is silent, the faculty handbook governs.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the CBA governs. Also to the administration and the union have what's called, if people aren't already familiar, a labor management committee. And hopefully when there's what could lead to or become a formal grievance, union leadership can bring a potential issue or concern to the labor management committee, and it's a little bit more, it's more informal than collective bargaining. Like collective bargaining happens, let's say every 3 years, depending on what the dates are for the collective bargaining agreement. And the only article that's opened up each year is compensation, unless something happens that requires impact bargaining, like a change in the cost of benefits, or if both the administration and UA agree to open up a particular article. So I just wanted to mention, the Labor Management Committee, because while collective bargaining is not happening and the book is closed, the Labor Management Committee is a place where the administration and the faculty union can try to figure things out before they become a bigger problem. I know Satya was on here. I don't know, Satya, I don't want to put you on the spot. Maybe you're not in a position to be able to talk about it at the moment. Or Christian, if you might want to say something in response to Tracy's question.
I think I'll just mention, I think, Liz and Chris have really covered, I think, a lot of this, the big issues being that, yes, the grievance procedure is specifically primarily for violations of the CBA. A lot of members come to us with issues that aren't really that. We try to offer support nevertheless, but often we'll refer to say AF&T, or if it's a civil rights issue, right? Or Ombud services to get some other feedback as well. I also will point a lot of our members to the Wayfinder that I know Liz worked very hard to develop, and it's a very useful resource as well. But yeah, also that, not all of our faculty are covered by the CBA, right? So those other channels remain important there as well.
Well, thank you, Liz, and thank you, everyone, for engaging in this conversation. I want to make sure we move on and have time for our breakout groups. So again, you have a task for today, and once you're finished, you can all feel free to drop off. But if you want to put up the breakout groups, Teresa, then people can choose their breakout group, and after your breakout group finishes your work, remember that you're going to be reporting out in the next in-person meeting in March. For those people at the branch campuses, I think you can email Nancy and Teresa, and there may be some funding if some people needed to stay overnight. Oh, what's the task again? People were supposed to identify in their breakout groups like an action item, something that's actionable that you could work on, make progress on, start on it this year, and if necessary, carry it over into the next academic year. So that was the task.
They should be able to join the breakout rooms now.
Yeah, you go down to where it says breakout rooms and you just click on that, and then you click on the one you would like to join. Like I said, when you're done, you can feel free to just drop off. Thank you.